AATBirds Weekly Report is the Eagle news, notes, and analysis you need.
Quick, he's going to go. What a give it to Smith, and they stumble again. Go back. He looks, fires for the end zone, intercepted, the 20, the 10, the 5, touchdown, Matt Ware, midfield, he's going to go, Deshaun Jackson. He steps up his head and falls forward, and he fumbles the football, and the Eagles have it. It's gone, and the Eagles win.
It's all birds, all the time.
And welcome back to another episode of the AATBirds Weekly Report. We have a familiar face back in the fold here. Chip for the Birds is joining us.
What's up?
And of course, myself, Johnny U9322. And we have a special guest here. Kendall is joining us tonight to talk some birds. You can find him at Beck Eagles. You see him all over, posting some good content there. So, hey, fellas, we're going to talk a little bit about the Texans win. We're going to talk Eagles 8-0, and then we're going to get into the Washington mess, if you want to call it that, because that's exactly what it is. We'll get into that a little bit later, but, hey, let's go. Some Eagles football. We have to wait a little bit since they played on last Thursday, so it's a little mini bye week. But kind of give me your takeaways from this week. I'll start with you, Kendall. What are your kind of takeaways from this win last Thursday to go 8-0?
I would say it was probably kind of expected to come out a little like rusty. When you're on the road and on a short week, there's going to be some flaws. So, I wasn't expecting it to be 14-14 at halftime. I was hoping to be at least a touchdown lead going at half, but especially with Cooks being out, Collins being out, I thought at least, we kind of control the game. But, they came out hot. They obviously, with us being 7-0, like, targeting our back. So, we're everyone's biggest threat, and they're going to be playing their best ball against us. So, I liked how we answered the second half because we made the adjustments and we came out, definitely sharper. But the first half was very unlike how we've been the past 7 weeks. But overall, you kind of expect it and nothing to worry about. And hopefully this mini bye can help us regroup for this week.
Yeah, Chip.
Yeah, I think that this Texans game was the ultimate trap game because there was so much surrounding Philadelphia in general. It was the middle of the Phillies playoff run. It was the middle of the Union, their championship run. The Sixers were doing their thing. So it was kind of easy for the first time to overlook the most important team in Philadelphia. And they were coming off of a bye. They were getting some pieces back. They were playing against a team that was flat out bad. The Texans are a bad football team. They had no business being in the game with us. So it was kind of the ultimate trap game. It was coming off of a short week. If you listen to any of the comments that Darius Slay said, he flat out hates Thursday night games. He gave an interview. He's like, when they hire me to do the Thursday night coverage as a reporter, I will say flat out the Thursday night, like, make it a Friday night game, make it a Saturday night. The Thursday nights really affect with the recovery time that they need. So there was that, and Darius Slay had a big issue with it, and you could see the team kind of came out flat, which is why I'm excited that they got this second now mini bye week to kind of gear up for the second half of the season. But again, they came out flat and they figured it out.
Yeah, and you look at what happened in that game, and you get the mini bye week, so get some guys to recover and rest up. But missing Jordan Davis is a pretty big loss because Dameon Pierce was able to run the ball at will. I know they tried to piece it together with Tui Pelotu and Marvin Wilson, but those guys they're what they are. They are what they are. Kanan, talk a little bit there, but unfortunately, that's kind of the Achilles heel if you want to kind of look at a weak point. And it's scary because when you look at the schedule and you look what's coming up, there are teams that are going to be able to try and exploit that and try to run the ball. You have Derrick Henry coming to town. You do have Green Bay with, Aaron Jones if he's healthy and AJ Dillon. So you have Dallas again. You have Saquon Barkley. So there's teams that are going to try to exploit that. With the Eagles are going to have to try and figure that out. And depending on how long Jordan Davis is going to be out. I know they say high ankle sprain, but he is a big guy. So it could be 4 to 6 weeks. It could be a little more than that, but as long as he gets healthy enough for a playoff run. But looking at this game against Houston, 8-0, first time in franchise history. They've never been 8-0. You have Jalen Hurts going 21-27, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's just, you never thought, like, even how the game was tied, Jalen Hurts just has that calm demeanor, and it's just, he's just that guy. He's just not going to let something affect him, whether the fumble that he had, his first fumble loss of the season. He only has 3 turnovers this season, which is crazy. Compared to what we had in previous quarterback regimen.
But it's so interesting because one of the biggest knocks on him this entire offseason was that, he's not good at this and he's not good at that. And, 3 turnovers, it's not like he's not taking chances either. You know what I mean? Like he's slinging the ball all over the place. He's tucking in and running when he has to. I mean, to me, he is the most consistent, steady part of this team, and the team is finding success around him. So to all the Jalen Hurts haters, and again, I wasn't necessarily a hater this offseason. I was much more of we still have questions, but I think he's come out and answered all of those questions, and I do expect there is going to be a pretty significant payday in his future, and there should be. He's come out, he's led this team. The players want to be here. That's the other thing. You look at the previous regime, and I know we're doing a Washington week, so we're going to probably bring this guy's name up. But the graveyard of bodies and coaches that Carson Wentz has left behind, whether it is, coaches or backup quarterbacks or linemen or whatever it is, Jalen Hurts is not that guy. He is the absolute steadying force behind this team, and it's why they're 8-0. And he's getting along with the coach, and he's got the same coaches and the same coordinators. I mean, it's all kind of coming together at this point.
I think going into the offseason, a very underrated part of Jalen Hurts' game that he had to progress in was turnovers, because early in his career, that was like a big problem. Like, he would fumble the ball, at least once a game, whether he lost it or not. It was a huge problem. And he has answered all those questions. Like, turnovers have been pretty much non-existent, and even the two picks this year weren't necessarily all his fault. I mean, the pick 6 in Jacksonville wasn't great, but
they also should not have been throwing that ball.
Correct, right, exactly, and and that's the thing. Like, it's good to know that Hurts is able to, when you're facing back against the wall, you're down. I think they were down against the Texans when he fumbled the ball. You're able to come back and answer the next drive and have a great long drive. That's big, and that's what you need from a quarterback, and that's what winners do. So,
yeah, and I think looking at the Texans, and they go right down the field, they score, they're running the ball. Defense gives up 168 total rushing yards on Thursday. And that was concerning. But then when you flip it and look at a guy like Javon Hargrave, 5 sacks in the last 2 games. He had 3 sacks, and he's a force up front. And it's unfortunately, Milton Williams is sprinkled in there, but Fletcher Cox is kind of having a little bit of a tough year.
He has his moments.
He is what he is. He's over 30 years old. He's at the downside of his career, and he needs to be playing less. Unfortunately, with Jordan Davis' injury, it's not going to help him all that much. But right. I feel that he is going to get a little bit less time, because the more Robert Quinn is here, the more they're going to implement him into the game plan, into the rotation. I know he wasn't in that much, and I will say,
they did not use him the other night.
No, and he's still new, learning everything. I will say, though, the neck roll he's got going on is pretty badass. I'll give that. Any player that wears a neck roll, same with like the black visor, it just adds another element of the cool factor to their costume, as Chip's wife likes to call it.
Oh.
But the one player I want to bring up to you guys, and I'll bring up the first guy to you, Chip, and then the second guy I'll have you touch on it, Kendall. The first guy for Chip I'm going to bring him up is Dallas Goedert.
Do it.
100 yards, touchdown. He's been such a great focal point of the offense, and he can just do so much to this offense and help Jalen Hurts progress as a passer and this offense progress in general.
I think the thing that always worried me about Dallas Goedert is you go from this Hall of Fame caliber tight end in Zach Ertz. And Johnny, you and I have had this conversation that Zach Ertz is Mr. No Yak, right? He catches the ball and he falls down. There is no yards after the catch, but he's sure-handed, which when you're checking down to a tight end in a lot of situations is really the only thing that matters. You want to make sure that they can catch the ball. Yeah. Dallas Goedert still is good for probably one, at the minimum, really terrible drop a game. But this season, he's not in that upper echelon. He's not in that, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce echelon of tight ends yet. But you can see that he's on the ascent. And the more he builds that rapport with Jalen Hurts, the better he's going to be. He's just got to eliminate those really bad drops, those ones where he is wide open and he has no excuse.
Yeah, that's one thing he does have to give. He's just an all-around tight end, and it's great to see. The other guy I want to bring up to you, Kendall, is Miles Sanders and what he's doing in a contract year. He had 93 yards, 17 carries, 93 yards, a touchdown, and it's just watching him run the ball. It's not that dancing behind the line of scrimmage. It's hitting the hole, getting up there. Even if you get 2-3 yards, kind of pushing yourself to get that extra yard or two, and it's a fun sight to see because what this offensive line can do for a running back like him.
Definitely. And this is kind of what we've been waiting for from him because he's quietly having easily the best year of his career. And I think one of his biggest problems when he was growing as a runner is just hitting the hole and, not hesitating, not dancing, just finding the hole, hitting it, and then running. And, we saw sparks of that. I mean, I think of one specifically against the Steelers in 2020. He had even one against the Saints, he had many great runs that year. And, credit to the offensive line, but it's if they're going to create these holes for you, you got to find it, you got to go. And that was his biggest problem coming into the league. And this year, has put that behind him, and he's just having a big year. And, I don't know if the Eagles are looking to bring him back. I know Howie doesn't like paying running backs, and personally, I don't either because, it is the truth. They are very replaceable. And I honestly like what I see in Kenny. He played really good against the Texans too. He had some really hard runs, and I think he can be utilized more as a receiver too. But he has some drop issues too. But Miles is having a great year, and I hope he can stay healthy and can continue that.
So our other co-host Mike says, "Bring back Miles."
I think the conversation you have to have about Miles Sanders though is the injuries, right? So one of the reasons why, in the NFL is not a running back league anymore. You look at the Derrick Henry, and at the beginning of the season, I said, Derrick Henry is the second best running back in football behind Jonathan Taylor. But what has slowed Jonathan Taylor down this entire season? Injuries, a bad coaching staff. And I can't even blame it on the coaching staff, but a changing quarterback, changing offensive lineman. Jonathan Taylor has shown that he is not the same running back that he was last year. So in order for Miles Sanders to be brought back, in my opinion, he 100% has to make it through this season without missing a game.
Yeah.
Because I think if he misses a game or two, you can see life without him. And if the offense still clicks, well, then he is a place that is repeatable. For his own sake, he needs to remain in the lineup every week so that he can show hey, this offense doesn't click without me.
We even saw last year with Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard, who is he even on the team anymore?
No.
He produced.
I don't know who though. I can't think off.
I think we did Saints.
Okay, yeah, I think.
But he produced and he was great. And it's I don't know if it's credit to Stoutland, the offensive line, but it's we don't need Miles, but what makes him so dangerous is these long breakout plays that he can give. So
yeah, home run hitter.
He is on the Saints. You guys are right.
He can be a home run hitter. And I think my only question with Miles and the re-signing and look at the rest of the free agents that you have. And one guy I'm going to bring up here is
so many free agents.
Yeah, CJ Gardner-Johnson leads the league with 5.
You got to sign him. You got to sign him big.
Oh no, absolutely. But you looking at him and what he's done and how he's done bringing this team together and the talent, for me, it's just looking at a Miles Sanders. And, Adam brings up a good thing here. Eagles, Jahmyr Gibbs in the draft, he'd be a good replacement. There's a lot of running backs coming out of the draft. You can get a guy in the second, third, fourth round to be able to complement the guys you have and, maybe pick up a veteran at a lower cost. But the amount of free agents that you have to pay, plus you have to pay your quarterback.
Yeah.
And guys that are going to be left off, whether it's
the price is going up.
Yeah. And all these players are playing well. Kaiser White's playing out of his mind. Marcus Epps is playing well. CJ Gardner-Johnson's playing well. Javon Hargrave is playing well. So you have these guys that are playing very well. It's just you can't sign them all. So
right. And I think the thing that you have to keep in mind as well is running backs are the one position in the NFL which is, as you lose the tread on the tires, you really don't you're going to see them at their best, and then it's only downhill, right? So I mention this all the time. The Dallas Cowboys, their best running back is not Ezekiel Elliott. It has never been Ezekiel Elliott since Tony Pollard joined the staff. As soon as Tony Pollard joined it, Ezekiel Elliott became the second best running back in the room. And the problem is that the game planning for the Cowboys is still feed Zeke. And it actually hurts them offensively. You saw what Tony Pollard was able to do when Ezekiel Elliott missed a game. So you kind of see the same thing with Miles Sanders, where Miles Sanders is a good running back. But he, from this point, is never going to get better than he is right now, right? Because him coming out of college, the positive about him was, well, he played behind Saquon Barkley, so Saquon Barkley got the bulk of the carries, and there's not as much, wear and tear on Miles Sanders. Well, now he's been in the league a couple of years. He's got the injuries stacking up. There is some wear and tear on Miles Sanders, and I think the injuries are something you really have to consider. And the knock on Howie was always, well, he doesn't pay linebackers. Okay, well, now he's paying linebackers. So for us to say, well, he doesn't pay running backs either, I don't want to just blanket Howie and say that. But I think in order for us to pay Miles Sanders, number one, he's got to make it through the season. And number two, that there's got to be no clear replacement in the draft. Because, Adam and Mike, they're both dropping names all over the place. Right now, we have the number 6 pick in the draft. Now, you never draft a running back that high unless they're like,
They have number 6 and number 31. Number 31 because the Dolphins don't have a first round pick. I see a lot of people putting 32. There is no 32 first round pick.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So you have 6 and 31. And I've mentioned it to Mike in terms. And by the way, quick on your Zeke Pollard point. Zeke's averaging 4.1 yards a carry. Pollard's averaging 6.2 yards a carry. There's that argument there.
But that's the entire argument. Pollard is the more explosive back. Zeke, you have to get him 25, 30 carries in order for him to get the numbers that you want out of him.
Don't tell Jerry Jones that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I think a lot of it to do is you're looking at the draft and I mentioned it to Mike. Of course, Mike wants to pick Will Levis because he's just a hater like that. But you're looking at them. If they have a top 7 pick, there's going to be teams that are going to need quarterbacks, in Indianapolis, if they don't finish as bad as, because they have a few wins here, teams like that, they're going to want to call the Eagles to Howie Roseman answering the phone saying, I'll give it to you, but you're going to have to give me a lot back. And,
for sure,
because remember, they also have the Saints' second round pick next year in 2024. So they have a lot of assets. They have these guys that still have to re-sign. There's a lot of fun building blocks. And it's pretty crazy because back in 2020 and the way this team was going into 2021, you wouldn't have really thought they'd be where they're at. And the reclamation project of this roster that Howie has done has just been, magical. And
let's
Adam wants Will Anderson, and we'll get to draft stuff later.
Let's talk about the one Howie Roseman highlight from Thursday night.
That was so goofy.
So for those of you that were really watching the Phillies game and weren't paying attention, Howie Roseman is swag walking around Houston and he sees this sign that's got a bunch of names crossed out. Your Nelson Aguilar's, your J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, your Carson Wentz's, all these names. And then you see A.J. Brown and it's like, you're forgiven. And Howie Roseman walks right up to this Eagles fan and goes, I'm forgiven for your first effing Super Bowl? F you. And I'm like, how a year and a half ago we were calling for your head on a platter, dude. Like, way to balls up. Way to go.
Yeah.
But he's also right. I mean, he basically stole an extra first-round draft pick and got A.J. Brown.
That's the thing. People love to like talk about, the Jefferson thing and DK thing, but it's like right now we got AJ Brown and Smitty. Like, you cannot ask for much more. And I think the difference with the Eagles going all in this year compared to 2017 is that they didn't really have like a plan after that year. And we kind of saw that unravel with, everything unfolding the way it did. They paid Wentz and then it went downhill from there. This year, like, you can see there's a plan. Like, you have a second round pick in next year. You got 2 firsts this year. You have a bunch of free agents, but you have picks and you have cap room to maneuver with so that you are set up for years going up down the line. Now, with Hurts getting paid this in the offseason, might make it a little bit more difficult, but I feel as if there's a plan now, and our window is more broader than it was back in 17.
And you make a great point, because when you look at 2017 and then you shift it over and look into 2018, now remember in 2018, Donnie Jones leaves, Brent Selleck retires, Vinny Curry leaves, Michael Kendricks leaves. And then what you do is you sign guys like Corey Nelson, Haloti Ngata, Mike Wallace, Richard Rodgers was signed, players. Michael Bennett was then acquired in trade. And the draft there was great. Every single guy in that draft, but of course they didn't play all that well. But the issue was Torrey Smith leaves. You trade these players, you get rid of them, and then Mike Wallace plays one game, gets hurt. Right. And you have basically all this trouble that happens because there are all these older guys and all these injuries. And then at one point in 2018, you're playing with 3 out of the 4 defensive backs are like practice squatters, whether one guy that's actually starting in the league, Shannon Sullivan, but he didn't get that much of an opportunity. But you got these guys that don't have, the repertoire to be able to be good players. And we saw it 2020 when you have Michael Jacquet playing corner, outside corner. I will take onus on this. I thought he was going to be somewhat decent, big, long corner. I was wrong. But you look at the roster now and you look at the players behind these guys, and they got young players with skill. They got some depth, and it's just younger players because, AJ Brown is 24 years old. Devontae Smith is 22, 23. You have Dallas Goedert, who's 26. You have all these players who are young. Quez Watkins is still young. It's just your quarterback's only 24 years old.
And my favorite part of it is that they are learning the appropriate locker room behavior and the mentality of winners from these Eagles legends. So, like, Jason Kelce is showing Cam Jurgens how to be a leader on offense. And Cam Jurgens is already in place learning from him. Jordan Davis is already in place learning from Fletcher Cox. So you mentioned the fact that you saw a plan. Yes, this team does have a plan. And I remember when they hired Sirianni, one of the things that we talked about on the show is, he's saying, oh, well, Howie builds the roster and then I execute. And we were over here going, yeah, but Howie can't build a roster. Well, turns out Howie can build a roster when people aren't negating and questioning and second-guessing every single thing that he says. So I'm not saying I've completely forgiven Howie Roseman, but what I'm saying is that he clearly knows what the hell he's doing.
For sure.
Yeah, you're right. You look at that.
Why are people still answering his phone calls?
Well,
he has fleeced the entire NFL.
Yeah. And you know what?
Howie, it's the National Fleece League.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. But, shifting it over to the opponent the Eagles have on Monday night, the Washington Commanders, 4-5.
They suck.
It's not Carson Wentz. It's Taylor Heineke.
Wait. Time out. Do you remember before the season, we had a conversation, I want to say with Rio, and how we were so excited about going down, doing the Philly sports trips and doing the tailgate. And we said, well, this is the only chance you're going to get to see Carson Wentz. Everyone's like, no.
Yeah, because and we said because he may not be healthy come
I'm just going to sit here in my rightness and be right. Just like right here.
Because he got hurt. Yeah, but, it is what it is. Taylor Heineke's there. To me, I don't know. How do I kind of trying to say who he is? Like a Jeff Garcia type, a guy that's
not even.
He's gonna test it. He's gonna make a play here and there, but he's gonna also turn the ball over. And if you're gonna do that to a team like the Philadelphia Eagles that take the ball away, and they take the ball away big time. Their offensive line's still shaky, and I think that the Eagles' defensive line can get after Taylor Heineke. I think the crowd's gonna be crazy. It is at home Monday night under the lights, so that's fun. But what are some key matchups? I'll start with you, Kendall. What's some key matchups one key matchup that you're waiting to see come Monday night?
Well, first of all, I do think the Commanders are a better team with Heineke. I mean, you can just tell on the sideline, like they just rally around him, like they embrace his leadership. Like he's a gritty player, and he makes plays. And like you said, like he'll have that turnover, and that showed on Sunday when he had that late turnover in the fourth quarter, and but that's what comes with being frisky and trying to make a big play here and there. But a matchup, I would say it would probably be our defensive line versus their offensive line, because I want to see Robert Quinn finally get involved. I want to see him getting some sacks. Like I want to see what he's all about, because last year he had 18 and a half, and we haven't seen anything yet this year from him, because I think he had maybe one sack in Chicago. Yeah. But I want to see how Fletcher plays, because he has some good plays this year, and he's made some big stops, but he also has some duds, and he hasn't always been his best. So, and then I guess I'm trying to think who else. Not too sure, but definitely defensive line working to get to Heineke. Make pressure, make him feel uncomfortable. Have that that Philly crowd get to him, and let him make mistakes for you, because if the pass rush can get there and Slay and James can do their job, like it could get ugly. But if they don't get to him and a rush isn't developed, he could pick apart our defense.
Yeah, and one that I'm kind of looking at quickly here is the AJ Brown, Devontae Smith against their secondary. William Jackson was traded to the Steelers. I know he had been playing pretty bad anyway, but when we went to the game, one guy that I think perked Chip a little bit was Rashad Wildgoose.
Great name. Great name.
They're one of their cornerbacks. But that'd be a matchup that I would be thinking about. Would be that.
Number one, Taylor Heineke. And again, I have now, through this podcasting world, met enough people who are Washington fans. Actually, I think I met all of them, because there's only 18 of them. They are so hot and cold on Taylor Heineke because he sucks. He's the worst. They win a game. Oh, Taylor Heineke's great. He's that guy. He's got that fight in him. And then he does exactly. This is a guy who is now here's a guy who is not a good quarterback. Point blank. He's undersized. He's got an arm, but it's not like a huge arm. He underthrows receivers. He doesn't do what he needs to do, and occasionally he leads him to a win. His calling card is going to be he kept up with Tom Brady in the playoffs. That's what it's going to be. But he's not the future. Now, the longer that Carson Wentz is out and not playing, I think that, Heineke's going to stick around, and, you're going to hold off on Sam Howell, who they did draft. I mean, at this point, I'd be surprised if Carson Wentz is in the league next year at all. Just being totally honest with you, I think the injuries, again, are stacking up. I'm not necessarily worried about their defensive pass rush, because our offensive line is the best offensive line in football when healthy. I think where I am most interested, I'm not even going to say concerned, is because of having Taylor Heineke, you will rely on the run game a little bit. And I think the combination of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are two very good running backs. And if we cannot slow them down, it opens up McLaurin and Curtis Samuel over top. So I do think that the offense as a whole is something to watch for, but it is all centered on can we stop the run game of Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson.
That's probably been the Eagles' defense's biggest Achilles heel is like tackling. Like they have been atrocious at tackling, and like it's the basics, and like that might sound like cliche, but like I mean we saw on Thursday like they could not tackle Pierce to save their life, and so that's probably my biggest concern moving forward since of like our next opponents. Like I am worried about Dylan and Jones with Green Bay. Obviously, Derrick Henry, who just had 200 yards against that Texans defense, like, if they cannot get this tackling down, like that is going to be a liability moving forward, and it already is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the one thing with Washington, they're a little banged up in the linebacker. David Mayo and Cole Holcomb are a little banged up, questionable. So that's something to look at if you want to look at the Eagles running the ball, if they're going with a few backup linebackers there. But again, their defensive line is what their strength is on their defense with Deron Payne, with Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. Now, Chase Young still isn't healthy, which is concerning if I'm a Washington fan with that injury, what kind of an injury that is. But, looking at the Eagles have to stop the run game, make Taylor Heineke beat you. That's what you're going to need to do. And I know Jahan Dotson's been banged up the last few weeks as well, so I'm not sure what his game status is going to be. There wasn't a lot in terms of injury reports since they play on Monday. Just one or two questionable guys I saw, but nothing too definite right now because it's a little too early still. But it's going to be a fun game. It's a divisional game. Would you like to see a blowout? Yeah. It may be a little closer, kind of how the Houston game was to start, and then maybe the Eagles are able to pull away into the second half. But another fun stat that I saw from Jeff Kerr, he tagged us in a photo, was the Eagles are one of, I believe it was eight or nine teams. I'm going to pull it up because it was actually a really good stat that he had. So it's right here. So the Eagles most consecutive games without trailing in the second half to begin a season, which means in the second half you have the lead until you win. So the most consecutive,
which is great because we normally give up in the third quarter, like just don't play it.
Right.
But the Eagles were one. They were tied with multiple teams. Most recent 2019 Patriots at 8. So, of course, 8 games there. The 1934 Bears had 9. The 1984 Dolphins had 9. The 1920 Decatur Staleys, which was
that was my team.
They had 10. The 1934 Lions had 10. And the 1920 Akron Pros. I heard LeBron James talked about them the other day.
LeBron's a clown, bro.
Sorry, I had to bring that up, but that's 11. The lead is 11 games in a row, not trailing in the second half. So that was a cool little stat that I happened to see from Jeff Kerr, CBS tagged us in a photo there. But it's interesting.
You look at the whole rest of the season, and we should be favored in every game on the way out. Which is a cool position to be in. It is also a very dangerous position to be in. I think that you have to be weary of, again, a game like the Texans was the ultimate trap game. And honestly, I feel like this Commanders game is a trap game because we've already played them once. Now we're playing them at home. Carson Wentz is not playing, so they don't have to get up for that. The fans are not necessarily going to get up for that because Carson Wentz is not going to travel with the team. He will not be on the sideline. He doesn't have the stones to do it. Let's call it like it is. And they'll say, oh, well, they typically don't travel to the. He does not have the stones to do it. I want to be very cognizant of, okay, let's go out and just foot on the throat here. Because, now what they're saying is, oh, well, the Steelers were 11-0. Yes, they were. And then they finished the season 11-6 or 11-5, whatever it was. I don't want that kind of collapse, especially because the NFC East is what it is this year. Which, holy hell, how is the NFC East what it is this year?
I don't know. I know the Giants would be a little bit better, but I didn't think they'd be this good.
This is crazy.
Washington, I kind of thought they'd be around this record 4-5.
Yeah, I knew Washington was bad.
Dallas, you always know Dallas is they're gonna, after Cooper Rush started, when Dak got hurt, I thought they were gonna be a lot worse, but they overcame that. But it's
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
To Chip, to your the Steelers analogy, this has kind of been my biggest pet peeve, like as of recent, is that like people are comparing this team to the 2020 Steelers. In my perspective, to shut that down, the Eagles played the Steelers that year, Week 5, and it was an offense led by Carson Wentz, who probably won't be in the league next year. Like Greg Ward, Travis Fulgham, who had a career game against that quote-unquote great defense.
That's when we thought we had a diamond in the rough.
Exactly, right.
I was the biggest one in that game.
I have his jerseys. I'm not kidding. I literally have his jersey. But anyways, we were a missed field goal away from beating that team. And that team, we finished 4-12 that year. Like, we had no business being that game. And so, they went 11-0, but it's like, this is the difference between that team and this team. We destroyed the Steelers this year. Like, we did not even let them have a chance to be in the game. And so that's the difference between like that team and this team. Like, yes, we're 8-0, and everyone wants to call our games, our easy schedule, this and that. But it's like we are dominating our opponents. We're not letting them even have a chance to win. And that's where people need to understand that we are not like them, like different teams completely.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And, that's a great segue to talk on a couple of things when stuff that we may think that's going to happen. It leads to our great segment, the Ulecka Locks.
It's time for the Ulecka Locks of the week. Who's your lock?
All right. And Chip missed that.
I did.
So, with the locks, I'm going to hit a little bit of some tunes. It'll be in the background. But the locks of last week, I did Hurts a passing touchdown and 2 rushing touchdowns. I was wrong, unfortunately. Adam, who was on our show, he had 3 rushing touchdowns by different backs. Only
close.
2, so it's close. And Mike had Sanders over 125 yards and a touchdown. Did not happen. 93 and a touchdown. So we're kind of off on those, but close, but no cigar there. So with this, I'm going to give Kendall, you'll be the first one crack at this since you've never done Ulecka Locks before. Give you the floor here. Tell us what you think is going to happen this week.
This is a big one. I'm going to say that Hurts has 4 touchdowns total, 2 running, 2 passing, and has over 300 yards passing. Lock it up. Take it to the bank.
And 300 passing yards?
Oh, yeah.
That would be very, very fun to see.
Man, he's coming in strong on his first lock.
Listen, he needs a big game for his MVP case. Josh Allen's banged up. Has the Vikings this weekend. What greater opportunity on prime time to shut everyone up and show yourself that you are the front runner for the MVP.
I mean, he's in front of Geno Smith.
Yeah. Hey, Geno's playing well. I'll give him
that. That's what I'm saying.
I love Geno.
But Chip, it's up to you now. The floor is yours.
So I think before I left, I don't think I got any of them right.
We're gonna say you got one right. I'll give you one.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm going to the defensive side of the ball this week. I feel like when we played the Commanders last time around, we sat on Carson Wentz. I think there was a little bit of a fire in the defense to go ahead and sit on him a bunch. So I don't think the fire is as much there. But I have the Eagles defense with at least 3 sacks and 2 interceptions.
Oof. Like to see that. Slay's been he wasn't happy. He wasn't thrown at on Thursday. So maybe Slay gets an interception or 2 Monday night again. But for me, with the Ulecka Locks, I'm going to stick with this game as well. I'm not going to go run a different game. I'm going to go with the Eagles and Washington Commanders. And I'm going to say that Robert Quinn gets his first sack as a Philadelphia Eagle. I think he's going to be able to beat Charles Leno around the edge and be able to get a sack. Give him that first sack, break the ice there, and not be like Ryan Kerrigan. Yeah, last year we had fun with him. But
Oh God.
yeah, that leads us to the predictions of the week. And I'm going to start with you, Kendall, again, with the prediction. I know you did post your prediction. You can kind of relay on why you posted that. It's the floor is yours.
So initial thought was, it's going to be a close game, divisional game. I obviously thought that. I think Heineke's, better than Wentz. But again, I think this is another opportunity for the Eagles to set the tone and show the world who they are. And, I don't know how much points this defense is getting up most in one game, but it's tough to see them giving up more than 17. That's a, Heineke-led offense. So, and then with our offense clicking the way it is, at home, we have a big opportunity to showcase that. So, I'm hoping it's going to be my prediction, but if it's, close and, low scoring, I wouldn't be surprised either.
So what is your prediction?
Prediction? I'm going to stick with it. 37-17 Birds.
You'll need those 37 if you're predicting your lock is Hurts getting 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
you need all those points you can get there. But go ahead, Chip. What do you think here, prediction-wise?
I think the Commanders get a couple points in junk time, but this game should be a smackdown. This game should be another dominating performance. I'm going 34-13 Eagles.
34-13. That'd be a nice little Monday night sleep after that.
Because all the eyes are back on the Eagles in Philadelphia. We need – it was a rough couple. I'll be honest. I had a sports hangover last week.
Well, yeah, you did, yeah. No, there's a lot going on there. And, for me, I'm going to go Eagles as well. I think the offense is going to be able to put some – like I said, I think it's going to be close going into half. And then the second half, I think the Eagles will have a couple scores to kind of pull away there. But I'm going to go with the Eagles, take it 28-14. I don't think Heineke's going to be able to muster a ton of points for Washington. I think there'll be a couple turnovers. And if he turns the ball over multiple times, it may be even worse of a score than that because Eagles just don't turn the ball over. And if that's the case, it's going to be a long day for Washington, and they'll be going back down to 95 at 4-6. But it should be fun. And I didn't even touch on the report that came out on everything. There's a major thing with them going out tomorrow. It helps the Eagles cause because they're going to be – it's just the distraction that they are down there with the sale, with this, with that, with this person coming out major now. It's an absolute train wreck down there.
I was told there's going to be some bombshells, so leave it at that.
Hey. Boom. That's anything.
That organization's a mess, and it's only getting worse.
Can you be any more surprised with that ownership and what's going on down there? And
It's a garbage organization. Again, we went down there for the first game, and I was so unimpressed by everything Washington.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that statement that was put out?
Yeah.
Yeah, where basically the owners are pissed off that they're not arresting the guy who shot Brian Robinson.
Yeah, it's very screwed up.
It's very bad, but hey, the Philadelphia Eagles are gonna try to go 9-0. Hopefully get there, and we'll be back next week to talk about the Week 11 matchup and check out all the shows, AATBirds, AAT Sports. Make sure you're checking out everything we got going on. Of course, the Union Show with Mike and Dave. Unfortunately, the Union did not win the MLS championship, but they're still doing great work. Awesome stuff across the pitch. So definitely check them out. I know Union's still playing. They have all this stuff. I don't know with soccer. Soccer's confusing to me, but with all the games they play and everything, but definitely check them out. We have Birds, Beers, and BS with Jeff and Peanut. So check them out as well. And Burning Bridges will be back but in due time. But of course, AATBirds weekly report, pregame, postgame shows when we have them as well. Definitely check it out. Check us out. We have a lot of cool stuff planned in the near future, some announcements and stuff. So definitely keep an eye out there. We're thinking about doing another pregame show. So again, keep your eyes peeled. And with that, the way we usually end it is a very happy and cheerful "Go Birds."
Go Birds.
Go Birds.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.